I'm Laura Hodgson, a Knowledge Counsel, and this is Sylvana van der Velde, a Senior Associate. We both work in the tax department at Travers Smith, and we have a particular interest in tax and sustainability. Today, we're going to talk about green tax incentives. Sylvana, why do you think businesses are increasingly talking about green tax reliefs?
I think there's two main reasons why green tax reliefs are in the news. Firstly, there's been a shift in the environmental strategies of businesses in recent years, with businesses wanting to be actively involved in solving the world's environmental problems rather than just offsetting their carbon emissions. And an excellent example of this is just this morning I read an article about two companies who have now said that Planet Earth is their main shareholder and will be their main focus for decisions. Secondly, green tax developments in the US means there's been a major shake-up in where businesses are choosing to invest.
Before we dive into the detail though, I should probably explain what green tax reliefs are. So these are tax reliefs that are aimed at either incentivising the development of environmentally friendly technology by businesses or incentivising the take-up of environmentally friendly technology by consumers. For example, you could give a business an enhanced deduction, which would reduce its profits for tax purposes, or alternatively, the business could be given cash back from the government. And tax incentives are particularly important when it comes to developing environmentally friendly technology. And this is because the capital costs of the development are very high, and it's not always obvious which emergent technologies will be the so-called winners as the world takes steps to transition to net zero. For example, it's not yet clear whether electric or hydrogen cars will be the zero emissions passenger transport vehicle of choice. What this means is that businesses will be attracted to invest in jurisdictions that give them immediate relief for costs, as opposed to jurisdictions where their losses are carried forward until such time when the business becomes profitable. Sylvana, what have you seen happening abroad?
I think the biggest thing we've seen is last summer the US passed the Inflation Reduction Act. Now, the name here is a little bit of a red herring, as arguably the biggest impact will be the introduction of a multi-billion-dollar package of environmental incentives rather than any inflation reduction measures. The package is a combination of grants, loans, and tax credits covering a raft of environmental activities. For example, developing renewable technologies and electric vehicle manufacturing capabilities and developing green hydrogen.
And why are businesses so excited about this?
Businesses have praised the simplicity and certainty of the measures. Several of the tax credits have been put in place for a period of 10 years, which will provide ongoing certainty to businesses operating in these sectors. And as we've seen recently in the UK, business certainty and stability is hugely important. The way that many of the tax credits are designed also means that there will be cash incentives even when the business's tax liability is relatively low. Another interesting design feature is that the rules incentivise businesses to use the US domestic supply chain to develop and manufacture products. This is likely to boost the US economy by motivating businesses and their investors to spend in the US, and means a wider range of businesses will be able to benefit from the packages. Elsewhere, the EU has responded by introducing its own Green Industrial Plan. The plan doesn't contain any specific tax incentives, but it should ease state aid rules for certain environmental measures, enabling EU member states to more easily introduce their own green tax incentives.
This is so interesting. The UK is going to need to consider whether to introduce its own tax incentives for the development and investment in environmentally friendly technology. And failure to do so really does mean that businesses will choose to invest in other jurisdictions instead. So at the end of May, we saw the FTSE 250 listed Drax Group announce that they will build 2 new bioenergy plants which have carbon capture and storage facilities in the US. And Drax cited the supportive investment environment created by the Inflation Reduction Act as the reason for this decision.
It's an excellent example of showing how green tax incentives can motivate business decisions. And I agree, the UK is going to need to do something or risk missing out on that type of investment. However, tax breaks are costly for the Exchequer. Do you think the Chancellor will want to do this?
Well, the key objective would be to incentivise UK businesses to invest in green tech projects in the UK. It is much better for the UK economy for this investment to be onshore rather than abroad, as it would generate highly skilled jobs for UK workers, which in turn generates income tax and NICS revenue. A generous regime may also attract foreign investment, again producing jobs and revenue.
So in other words, tax incentives are not a pure cost. The revenue generated by the jobs would be net off against that.
Absolutely. What sort of tax incentives would you like to see the UK introduce?
Well, if we're saying the main aim is to encourage high-tech green businesses to establish themselves in the UK, so this means the reliefs would need to be offered at developer level, minimising the upfront capital costs and making the developer entity an attractive investment. One option would be to turbocharge R&D relief for environmentally friendly technology. However, the rates would need to be enhanced and the rules fine-tuned to make the relief internationally competitive. Investor-level incentives could also be introduced to attract UK investment into green tech. For example, a more generous regime and simpler regime than the current EIS or SEIS could be introduced for individuals investing in UK green tech companies. Laura, do you think there should be green tax incentives for consumers as well?
Well, Silvana, we do already have some consumer level tax incentives. So we have zero VAT rating for the supply and installation of heat pumps and solar panels. And this could be expanded to cover other energy saving items such as double or triple glazing and electric car charging points. We could also have a zero rate for new electric cars or other zero emissions cars. Another thing you could do would be to have tax incentives such as lower rates of SDLT, and these could be used to incentivise the creation, whether by building or whether by retrofitting, of energy efficient homes. Personally, I suspect that some sort of consumer level green tax incentives may be needed in order to encourage take-up of new technologies at the scale and at the pace that is required to meet the UK's ambitious net zero commitments.
Thanks, yeah, I completely agree. In the spring budget, the Chancellor stated that he would respond in the autumn statement to the challenges created by the Inflation Reduction Act. So it will be really interesting to see what he decides to do.
Yes, there's a real opportunity here to go bold and follow the US stance with a regime generous enough that foreign businesses choose to develop new technologies in the UK or to locate carbon capture facilities here. But time really is of the essence. Businesses are looking to make long-term investment decisions now, and the clock is running on the net zero commitments.
We hope you found this discussion interesting. You can find more materials about sustainability and tax on the Travers Smith website.